It's really cool to have you here and check out what we're doing. And this topic today is going to be, I think, interesting, exciting, useful, and really, really, really good for your horse, because you'll understand much more about your horse, you'll understand more about these specific traits that we're going to talk about, and you'll perfectly understand how to implement the strategies to get these traits more centered. And I'm going to hand over to Franzi, and she's going to tell you what the topic is.
So today we want to talk about a compliant, sensitive, and willing horse. Because what we hear again and again, if we listen to our students or if we have a look to social media, that almost everybody who is with horses for sure wants a compliant horse, a sensitive horse, so a horse which is really kind of easy and light to move.
Light, that's a good one.
Yeah, and most of us, I think, also want a horse which puts some zeal in, and a horse which is really motivated to do something with us.
And that, just on that, is that the saying is out in the world is do less and get more, or they even shorten it. They say less is more. And that's where we head to with sensitive, and then on to willing, fully into less is more.
But what we also see really often, especially in the modern dressage world, that people buy a horse, it's uneducated, untrained, maybe not even started yet, and they just start the process and kind of already want to start with the end result. So they already want this compliant, sensitive horse, but they kind of almost expect that it's already there.
Yeah.
And they already want to work on the horse, which is in this perfect frame and collected and floating through the arena. But I think it's quite clear to almost everybody that this is not really possible. And I mean, at the end, then people they get frustrated and they get emotional. And often they get then harder and harder on the horse. And also, if you have a look to some studies with the horses, it's a bit of shocking if you see how early now the horses really break.
Retired.
Yeah, not only mental, emotionally, but also physically.
Yeah.
Like they just can't handle that pressure. And the aim here is really that we lay a foundation. And of course, we cannot only look at the 3 traits we talked about today, compliant, sensitive, and willing. But this is the main focus for today. But to give you an overview where they are kind of living
in between. Yeah.
In between, we just give you this overview from the 9 Equisit traits. So the first one, which is really mandatory before you focus too much on the second one, is courageous. So this just simply means that the horse is courageous towards the environment, towards us, and all of the equipment. So kind of generally, the horse is responding relaxed, or we say courageous, to everything, who is not asking the horse to change.
But this doesn't mean that the horse is like a robot or completely shut down and ignoring things. We want the horse to be living. So in human terms, we want them maybe to feel a bit of fear, but go through. And that's what courageousness is to us, that they might be a little checking out things, what's happening, what is it? But they're prepared to go through and check out what it is and go past that thing if we ask them.
Yeah. Then the next trait is compliant, as we just talked about before. And this means for us that if we confront the horse with energy, and it doesn't matter if it's pure body energy or body energy plus support energy, that the horse follows this suggested or requested energy direction. And this can be, so we have multiple body energies. We don't want to talk about this, not too much. But if we just scratch on the support energies, we have the steady energy, where we put really a physical contact on the horse, where we can go through the phases, or we can use some rhythm, or even combined. And the aim is that the horse follows this direction. Not sure how to say it in English, but
follows the direction, the energy you're sending.
Yes.
So it moves in the direction that you want it to, or it stops when you ask it to. So it's important to think about compliant means that going in the direction you want, not in another direction. This is not compliant. Okay, compliant is following the energy direction.
And also important to know here, it's not about any specific quality or quantity. It's just that the horse roughly understands to follow this energy.
And if you increase the energy, it should increase its movement.
Yes.
But it's not about sensitive. It's not about speed. It's not nothing. It's just moving.
And only then we check out if we ask the horse for a change, for example, to go from a hold into a sideways, that the horse can stay calm in this change, so that it kind of responds with an appropriate muscle tone. If the horse then is courageous, compliant, and calm, only then we work on this or check it if the horse is attentive. And this means it's not mandatory that the horse looks like this at us nonstop, but depending on the request, that it gives us a certain amount of attentive, that it's not looking around somewhere else or kind of shutting down.
Yeah, it can also be attentive to, if you ask it to go over a cavaletti or into a trailer, it's attentive to those objects as well.
Yeah.
This is important.
And when we have this foundation of the 4 traits, then we move on and go to maintaining. And this means only kind of roughly that the horse can maintain gait and direction. This can be following, for example, a walk in a circle, or following the crossing of the hindquarter, or sideways, or moving the front end. So the aim is that we don't have to remind the horse every split second to maintain this gait or direction.
And it's not about speed or rhythm or anything like that. Yeah.
Then we come to the second trait we want to talk about. It's the 6th trait.
Sixth.
Sensitive. So only now we work on that the horse gets really light. So before it was kind of, it didn't matter how much energy we had to use as long as the horse was compliant and calm and attentive and maintaining. But now, because we have already quite a good foundation, we check out, or we start to explain the horse to move on a low phase. So the lowest phase we use, what we call phase 1, and within 1 or 2 seconds. And with talking about this, I mean, if we look at young horses, doesn't matter how many hours or days they're old or which breed, generally they get born sensitive. And we, even if we look at grown-up horses, and if we check out how they move, or how they respond even to a fly, how sensitive they can be. It's really incredible how high this can be. But often they learn with a human that it's better to respond high tolerant or even resistant. So the aim here is with sensitive that we, like in the other traits, but now the human has to develop really a huge amount of focus, like plan, and a huge amount of awareness and timing to control their own body energy, so that we really give the horse the trust again that our request means something and that we want a sensitive response again.
And we need feeling as well.
Yeah.
So that we're empathetic to the horse and not just going up phases like with no control. So empathy about the horse learning in the process as well.
Yeah. And then the horse can respond sensitive, and important to understand here, it's only about the first 1 or 2 seconds. So this means a transition to something, like can be a transition from walk to trot, or canter to trot, or shoulder into travia, whatever you ask to change in the horse. And only then we look for the next trait, what we call perpetual. So this means similar like a perpetual mobile, or how you call it in English? Like
perpetual motion.
Yeah, maybe then you explain it.
Yeah, the idea of perpetual means that it's ever able to keep going. It's kind of built its own energy and keeps going. So like the balls, you have a row of balls on strings, you can hit one and it hits the other end one and comes back like this. I mean, eventually that stops, but it looks like it's perpetual. And so the plan is with the horses, we came up with this name of perpetual, so that you don't have to keep hammering on the horse to keep going. Like so many people in their dressage, they're banging all the time. But the poor horse, he just gets kind of desensitized to this, and then they have to bang more and get spurs and everything else. We want to encourage our horses to be perpetual. So it's beyond maintaining the gait. It's then into maintaining, if you like, having the rhythm be perpetual, having the tempo or the speed being perpetual, having the step length being perpetual. All of these parts of the movement, we aim to get them perpetual so that we don't have to keep nagging the horse to keep going. That's the plan.
Then the next trait, number 8, is willing. So now it starts where we introduce the horse to the idea that we start to do less, and we want to explain that the horse can only stop us when it does more. So here we are in the seal category, where the horse really puts some seal in to give us more. And it doesn't matter, especially in the beginning, if it is a higher step or a faster step, or it lifts more the front end, or it sits down more on the hind end. It's something more, so that we really see that the horse understands the concept that if it gives us more, it can stop us. And only then we come to the next trait, the last Equisit trait. It's spirited. So before, it really didn't matter in kind of which body posture is the horse. For example, a horse can still be sensitive, perpetual, and willing, but it's not in the maybe best and most healthy body posture. But now, because we have such a great foundation with the first 8 traits, now we look for some spirit, what means that the horse gets really in a better and better body posture and really brings the inner spirit in the body, so it starts to shine, kind of.
And it also has a tonality in its muscles as well, which is not in any way tension or agitation, but there's a muscle tension in there that has the horse ready to move right, left, up, down, backwards, forwards, whatever. So spirited is an emotional and really a fully physical way of moving for the horse. So a lot of people, if they think about dressage, they think about a horse being spirited, and people look for this in dressage horses, but often they get the spirited before they maybe get some of these other traits in place, and then there's some trouble. So that's why we've put it right up there at number 9. So just a quick word on all of these. We kind of talk about them in order, going up and working our way up there, helping our horses develop them. But it's not that we develop all of courageousness fully in the whole horse before we move up. We do this, it's an iterative process. We go up and around and up and around and back down and up and around, depending on the kind of the developmental level of both the human and the horse. So it's an iterative process, and it keeps repeating over time and over time. So cool.
So the plan was just giving you a little overview again about what the Equisit traits are and where compliant, sensitive, and willing is living. And so this was a bit the theory part in the beginning. And right now we only talked about the center traits, the traits almost every horse lover would love in the horse. And if you have the center here, then you have something on the left side, like the horse is less expressive. For example, you have the courageous horse, but the horse can be skeptical, apprehensive. So this is on the left side, and it's all on a spectrum, so it can be close to the center or further away, or super far away. Or it can be more expressive, that it really starts to use more expressive the body, what we would call here on this row panicky. And again, it can be hardly visible panicky or super panicky, that it runs through everything because it's on such a high flight mode.
And the big difference on the left side compared to the more side generally is if the horse moves its feet in almost any of these traits that we talk about. On the more side, they move their feet, their body and their feet. And on the left side, generally they're doing much less and often not moving their feet.
Yeah.
So in the spectrum again, but that's kind of where it's less and more.
And important to understand before we continue is it's not only a spectrum, but it's important that you know that these traits, they can change every split second. A horse can be in this split second panicky, then it can be courageous or apprehensive, or it can be resistant or hypersensible. So they can change every split second.
Right.
But I mean, also, if you did not hear much about this yet in Equisit, you can be maybe a bit overwhelmed and think, wow, this is really difficult. And what are they talking about? But at the end, I mean, it's a really good chance to get a structure or system that you can start to analyze your horse better, to read it and understand it better. And then learning about these definitions of the traits, this is kind of a first start. And then Tony also developed kind of some strategies how to get the horse from more expressive or less expressive to centered. But this is maybe a talk for another time.
For sure. And there's a saying that goes, the more you know you don't know. And this is a little bit true with what we're giving you here in the traits and as you go through learning this stuff, because it does seem overwhelming. It can seem overwhelming. It can seem like, oh my God, how can I ever understand all this? How can I ever put this into practice? But the thing is, if you don't have this, then you don't really have a roadmap. You don't really have a, like Franzi said, a structure around what your horse is behaving or what your horse is displaying in the behavior and what that means in the mental and emotional states of your horse, and therefore what you can do to bring them more centered or change their behavior to what you want. So don't worry that it feels, if you feel overwhelmed, don't worry if you feel like, oh my God, there's so much information. Sure, take your time, listen through, work through, and we'll keep adding bits and pieces over time to the member area where this will become more and more usable for you. And the more you know you don't know. But it's ignorance is bliss, we say as well, you know, so not knowing is not helpful for you or your horse. So stick with us. We'll just look at these three and then it'll be a little bit more clear.